Welcome to The Debate. Today, we're diving into a pretty tangled financial situation involving someone named Ghazala Din. She stopped making her regular payments. The material calls them monthlies or commit. Now, these seem to be part of some kind of community savings setup, maybe like a ROSCA or committee. The real point of contention for us is how do we interpret her reason for not paying? She claims the account's been frozen, especially when, there are pretty strong warnings about her behavior beforehand and predictions she'd default. So I'll be making the case that the evidence really points strongly towards deliberate default, maybe even fraud.
And I'll be taking the counter position that while, yes, the whole situation looks suspicious, the specific reason given, the frozen account claim, well, it has to be treated as a potentially plausible external factor, at least until we have solid proof it's definitely false.
Right. So my position is essentially that the background here makes Din's excuse almost impossible to take at face value. It really just seems to validate the speaker's earlier worries. I mean, the speaker was warned, very specifically told something like, it's going to get to the point where she's going to start doing it to you as well. And, well, that's exactly what happened. This isn't just a short delay either. We're talking, 9 weeks of non-payment since before fasting raws, apparently. And the speaker's reaction that, what a surprise, it just screams skepticism, doesn't it? So the long duration plus this history of evasion makes the whole frozen account story feel very, very convenient, like a way to just block any further discussion or responsibility.
Okay, I understand that perspective, but I'm coming at it a bit differently. We can't just dismiss the actual explanation she gave. The account's been frozen. That's a concrete claim, even if we can't verify it easily from the material. Sure, the history is concerning, but focusing only on the prediction, well, that risks confirmation bias, doesn't it? Bank accounts do get frozen sometimes. It happens. It can be a real administrative nightmare. And there's that other detail. The speaker mentioned Din was worried because obviously she's got 2 committee left. Now, if she's worried about those last 2 payments, that could suggest genuine financial pressure. Maybe she's just handling this freeze badly rather than definite intent to scam everyone.
Let's zero in on the time frame, though. 9 weeks. 9 weeks without making regular financial commitments. That's not just a small blip. That strongly suggests a more systemic kind of failure, whether it's an ethical one or a practical financial one. From a practical standpoint, a standard administrative freeze usually doesn't drag on for over 2 months without some kind of clear communication trail or established way to sort it out. This extended silence, it just seems to back up the speaker's original doubts about how Din handles these things.
That's a fair point about the duration. It is long. But we also need to consider the communication context itself, don't we? Have you factored in that the speaker, the person owed the money, mentioned losing all their own contact data, phone numbers, everything, because of a broken screen and a factory reset? Now, if the person trying to collect the debt is facing those kinds of communication barriers, isn't it possible that getting clear, verified info about someone else's complex bank issue is genuinely difficult? This sort of fractured communication environment might actually make a real, hard-to-resolve account freeze more plausible than assuming it's purely a lie.
I see how you could frame it as a communication breakdown, but I still think the core issue is her perceived credibility, which is rooted in that history. The context we have strongly implies a pattern, one the speaker was warned about. So this frozen account excuse, it just feels like the perfect shield for someone intending to default. It's definitive, it shifts blame to a third party, the bank, and it lets her effectively stop all payment demands without actually admitting fault. It's almost too neat.
But I challenge the idea that her goal is necessarily a total default, a complete scam. Why? Because of that detail, she still has 2 committee left. There's an acknowledgement of outstanding obligations there. If this was a purely premeditated plan to just take the money and run, why even acknowledge those remaining debts? That small fact suggests she might still have some motivation, however minimal or poorly executed, to eventually resolve this. Until we see clear evidence she can't access funds and is just refusing to pay, that frozen account claim remains this significant unknown variable. We just don't have enough to label it pure fraud yet.
Well, I still maintain that when you put it all together, the 9-week duration, the specific warning given beforehand, and that immediate cynical, what a surprise reaction to the excuse, it paints a pretty clear picture. For me, it collectively points towards deliberate avoidance, basically confirming exactly what the speaker expected would happen.
And I'm just not quite there. I'm sorry, but repeating the phrase, account's been frozen, even in a suspicious context, isn't quite enough for me to call it proven malice. It remains a specific, potentially verifiable external claim, and without more comprehensive data, we really can't jump to the conclusion that stopping the monthlies is solely down to intentional fraud.
Indeed. And perhaps what this whole exchange really highlights is just how difficult it is to be certain about someone's intent, especially when you're working with, fragmented conversational evidence that's already clouded by skepticism and, frankly, broken trust.
Absolutely. And thinking through these different angles, these conflicting interpretations, it ultimately helps us better understand how these complex personal financial arrangements and the stories people tell about them interact within the material we're examining. There's definitely more to unpack here.